As you and your team are making calls using PhoneBurner, you're going to run into situations where the contacts that you're calling or the leads that you're calling tell you that they're just not interested, right? They might say it a little bit differently than that, and you might classify them differently than that, but for all intents and purposes, you may run into situations that people are just not interested. But if you're like me, and like a lot of other people out there, if somebody says they're not interested, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not interested forever. It just means that they're not interested now. So it's more of a timing thing than a true interest thing. And so for me, when it comes to a not interested, it just means I need to leave them alone for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever that might be. Your situation might be different. You need to think about your processes, but for the most part, when somebody says they're not interested, it's usually just a timing thing. And so with PhoneBurner, we make it really easy for you to disposition contacts as not interested. Like here, I can click the not interested disposition and I move on to my next call. And what happens to those contacts? How do we make sure that we systematically follow up with those contacts later on so that they're not lost forever? So let's end this dial session. And I'm going to go to contacts. This is where those records end up, right? They get moved into a not interested folder. At least this is what you should be doing with your contacts. As you're calling through them, you should be dispositioning them into specific folders as you're getting decisions from them, as they're sharing information with you, right? The follow-ups and not interested and all that, right? So how do we make sure that contacts like this, like Powerman, get moved back into our lead stream? In this particular case, I had called this contact from my hot, fresh leads. You know, in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, do I want them back in the hot, fresh leads? Maybe not, but I might want to get them into some sort of lead stream so that I can call them again in the future. Maybe put them in a nurtures call campaign after that. So hopefully you've watched some of the other training videos and you know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about blind pull lead streams and nurture calls. If you don't, I recommend that you go back and watch these videos. But what we're going to talk about on this specific training is we're going to create a systemized process to automatically take, Powerman and move him from not interested into the nurture calls campaign after 30 days. So let's get into it. From the admin account, I need to go to the lead stream section. If you've already gone to the lead stream and you've saved it as a quick link, you should be able to access that in your quick links. Otherwise, you'll go to the gear in the contact manager and go down to lead stream. From here, you'll see a list of all of your lead streams. And we're going to create a new lead stream. We're going to click on add lead stream. I'm going to enable this lead stream. And I'm going to call this one not interested round robin, or not interested RR for round robin. And then I'm going to give it a description. So we'll give it a description. This is our round robin lead stream to automatically move contacts that were not interested into our nurture campaign in 30 days. And the type of lead stream that we're going to configure is a round robin lead stream. So we're going to choose that option. And then when it comes to the distribution folder, we want to use our not interested folder. However, I've made that not interested folder a subfolder under contacts, and the contacts folder is the one folder that is excluded from any lead stream stuff. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to save this as it is, and we're going to come back and edit this. So let's go to our folders page. And let's reorder folders. Let's take the not interested folder and pull it out of the contacts folder. Now let's go back to lead stream. Let's go back to our not interested lead stream. We're going to edit that. We're going to go back down to the distribution folder, and we should see our not interested folder is now available for us to select. We're going to go ahead and select that. Now we're going to move on to our receiving folder. We need to select a receiving folder. And I'm just going to create a new receiving folder. I'm going to call this not interested RCV for receiving. And I'm going to make this a subfolder under the not interested folder, and I'm going to click OK. Once I click OK, let's go down and lock it in. And for our recycling folder, we're not going to recycle back into not interested because that'll just create a loop, right? We don't want to just loop around and around and around in not interested. We want to move these contacts into our nurture calls, right? So it doesn't matter where we called them from. We called them from one of our lead streams. We dispositioned them into the not interested folder. And 30 days later, we want to move them into our nurture calls lead stream. That's our blind pull lead stream for nurture calls, where they're going to get called every 30 days for us to continue to try to connect with them, to try to move them forward. So we'll set our recycle time for 30 days. And when it comes to from time lead was distributed or from time lead was last called, they're not going to get called again during this 30 days. So we're going to leave this set to from time lead was distributed. We're not going to worry about any sorting by custom fields or anything like that. We don't need to hide anything using this miscellaneous option because we're just going to distribute these and in 30 days move them into another lead stream. And so the next thing we need to do is add recipients. So I'm going to click Next, Add Recipients. And that's going to take us to the page where we can add recipients. Now, this is where it's going to be a little bit different than all of our other lead stream discussions. So far, we've essentially added everybody to the lead stream. You know, everybody's participating. And I know I've talked to you and let you know that you don't have to add everybody to every lead stream, even though that's what we've been doing. But in this particular case, there is no reason for us to share this lead stream for anybody else on our team. There's no reason for anyone else on our team to have access to this lead stream. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add the admin to this lead stream. I'm not going to put any limits on it. We're just going to add the admin, and that's it. And why do I only add the admin? Because nobody's going to be calling these contacts until they recycle into another lead stream. And those team members are already on that other lead stream. So now what's going to happen? Let's go back to our main lead stream page. Let's take a look at our not interested RoundRobin lead stream. We can see it is monitoring the not interested folder. That's the distribution folder. So it's looking at that folder for anything to get added to it. If somebody gets added to that lead stream, it's immediately distributed to the admin, right? We only have one team member that's on that lead stream, and we immediately distribute to that team member. That starts our 4 weeks, 2-day countdown, the 30-day countdown. After 30 days, that's when it's going to recycle into our nurture calls lead stream, which is a lead stream that allows our team members that are participating in it. Here you can see we've got 3 people participating in it. It allows our three team members to call through those leads, but they'll only get called once every 30 days at a maximum. And since we already have contacts that are in that folder, they didn't get distributed. They'll sit there until tonight, right? At tonight when the system resets and looks at all of the RoundRobin lead streams to see if there's any data that needs to be distributed to any users that haven't reached their limits or anything like that, it'll automatically distribute those. Or if we want to just kind of kick the side of the can and get things started right away, we can click on this little button here where it's got the 2 arrows that crisscross over each other. I can click on that, then click OK. And the system will start to process the data that's in there. So here you can see 1 lead has been delivered. If we go back to our contact manager and we go to our not interested folder, we'll see that we don't have any contacts in our not interested folder anymore. But if we go to the not interested receiving folder, we'll see that PowerMan is in fact in that folder. And we'll see he's due to be recycled in 4 weeks, 1 day, 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 35 seconds. So in 30 days. At that point, he will be moved into the Nurture Calls folder, which is the distribution folder for the Nurture Calls campaign or lead stream. and will be available for our team to start calling. Any notes that were related to this contact will still be there. So when that lead pops up on the screen, they'll be able to see that on June 23rd, this contact was dispositioned, is not interested, and now he's popped up again to be called. So let's take a look at that start to finish again here. So let's go to leads. Let's say I am dialing from, doesn't matter again whether I'm dialing from hot and fresh or nurture calls, but I'm going to use my hot and fresh lead stream. So I select that lead stream, get connected. The moment I start calling from this lead stream, that lead is going to be taken out of the lead stream. So you can see the total available leads went from 174 to 173 because I just started calling this contact. If he doesn't answer and I click voicemail, he's going to recycle either back into the hot and fresh leads or into some other lead stream depending on that lead stream's settings. If he does answer, I click live answer, I end the call, I do my whole conversation, I do that whole thing, I update my notes, do everything that I need to related to this record. Let's say, great call, but he isn't interested today. You know, whatever my notes are. Update any specific details on the custom field, and then I click the not interested disposition. When I click the not interested disposition, that moves me onto the next call. But while I move on to the next call, let's move this off the screen. Let's refresh this again, right? So now we're down to 171 total contacts because we called one and left a voicemail or there were no answer. Then we marked one as not interested, and then we just started calling another one, so it was taken out of the lead stream. Now if we go back to contacts, if we go to our not interested folder, again, we don't have anything in the not interested folder. That's because that contact has been immediately distributed to the admin into the receiving folder, and the recycle time has started. So here we've got Powerman who has a shorter recycle time now because it's been longer. So anyway, this is a simple way that you can configure your account to automatically recycle contacts who say they're not interested into some other pool to be called again in the future. So I ran through this as a not interested example, but keep in mind you can do similar things for any other type of situation. Let's say you have somebody who wants to be followed up in 30 days. Rather than setting a specific follow-up date, having that rep take ownership of that follow-up, you could create a follow-up in 30 days disposition that moves the contact into a follow-up in 30 days folder that distributes that contact to the admin and then recycles into some other lead stream in the future. So when you pair this with custom dispositions in each of your lead streams, it gives you a ton of power, ton of flexibility on how your data gets recycled back into your lead stream. So anyway, thank you for taking a moment to watch this video. I hope this helps you and your organization get the most out of your data using the power of PhoneBurner. Thanks again, and happy dialing.